So Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski have a rematch at UFC 251. Max Holloway shows this great improvement and evolution as a martial artist. Alexander Volkanovski shows the heart of a champion by coming back after being down in the fight and winning rounds 4 and 5. But ultimately, that's not really the story of the fight. Unfortunately, those two performances are overshadowed by men who are outside of the octagon. What everybody's talking about at this point has more to do with the judging than what we saw inside of the octagon. And that's always a shame. It's always a shame anytime something happens to draw attention away from the two combatants who are in there, the two people who are participating in the sport. Now, if you've watched MMA or boxing for any amount of time, you've likely seen a bad decision. Bad judging comes out all the time. It constantly happens. Boxing's been around longer. It's been plagued by it at a higher level for a longer period of time, but we've absolutely seen it in the UFC and MMA for a while now. This is just the most recent iteration of it. This one isn't what I would exactly refer to as a robbery, though. A lot of people overuse that word. They absolutely use it too much. This is not a robbery. We've seen them before, but this isn't one of them. And the reason is simple. Clearly, rounds 1 and 2 were Holloway rounds. Walked away with them. No debate about that. Rounds 4 and 5 were Volkanovski rounds. He won those 2 rounds. Okay, so this is only a 5-round fight. That means if you give Max the 3rd round, which I did, he won the fight 3 rounds to 2. 48-47 on the cards. If the judges mess up one of those rounds, which in my opinion they did, they get the 3rd round of Volkanovski, then he gets the victory by 1 point. That doesn't make it a robbery. If they would have given those, if that card would have came back 49-46, 50-45, things like that, you would say that card was a horrible card and it led to a bad decision. But when you have a fight that's as close as this, and it has to be close if Volkanovski won 2 rounds, I just don't think you can call it a robbery. A robbery is something that's just egregious. And we've seen them before. Honestly, I can't think of any of them right now off the top of my head. The only one that comes to my mind was actually 1988 Olympics, or was it 92 Olympics? I can't remember. But it was Roy Jones in the gold medal match, or when he lost to the, was it a Korean fighter? Jin Park, I want to say. I can't remember. But it was so bad that they actually went back retroactively and fixed it and awarded him the gold medal. After the fight, his competitor, who supposedly just won, lifted Roy up and walked around the ring with him because he knew and everybody else knew who was watching what the real outcome of that fight was. So there's been some absolutely egregious decisions in the past, and the word robbery has been used justifiably. This isn't one of them. This is what I would call a bad decision. But it highlights a bigger problem, and that's that it continues to happen. We continue to see poor judging in combat sports. Now, the answer to that, it doesn't seem that complicated on paper. You would say, get people who are educated about the sport, like really, truly educated about the sport, which is typically going to be somebody who used to compete at it, or at least trained at it for a long time at a high level and has been around competition. Then teach them the very specifics that come down to judging, and let them sit next to the octagon and give their opinion, right? Put down on the scorecard what it is they see happening. Instead, you can see we've got a lot of these judges in MMA who came over from boxing. Their whole career, everything that they did, all their training, all their knowledge, they were involved in boxing. And then because they're already plugged in with like the state athletic commissions and things like that, they lump MMA in as a combat sport with boxing. They probably got a small amount of cross training, and then they're brought over. People who've never competed in wrestling and don't understand it well. People who've never competed in jiu-jitsu and don't understand it well. People who never competed in kickboxing and don't understand it well. There's a lot more elements that go into MMA and how you would judge that than there is in a boxing match. Even though we see boxing judging done poorly all the time as well. One of the things that I think we've seen way too much of is MMA judges who give too much credit to aggression. Ineffective aggression. When you're coming forward and the other guy's backing up, but what if he's backing up and he's countering you, just tearing you apart with counter shots? That's much more effective, and that should be graded higher than somebody who's just walking forward applying aggression. What if a guy gets a takedown, but then the guy gets back up right away? He can't hold him down. What if a guy gets a takedown, holds him down for a little bit, but doesn't cause much damage and gets stood back up for inactivity? A lot of times those things seem to have scored much higher on the judges' scorecards than they should have. That's not the way that you should be able to win a fight. You shouldn't be able just to walk forward and have it negate another man's surgical striking just because you were going forward and pushed them back up against the cage. You shouldn't be able to take somebody down or hold them down and do nothing and then have that score longer because it lasted for 2 minutes than somebody catching you with a shot and wobbling you on your feet even though it was only one punch. There's a lot of nuances to it. And I believe that a lot of those nuances are lost on a lot of the judges, so we end up seeing these poor decisions. Holloway Volkanovski was a pretty bad decision. And I mean, you look at something like that and the argument could even be made that we need to completely revamp the 10-9 system. The 10-9 system came from boxing, so they tweaked it a little bit recently with these modified rules where now they give out 10-8 rounds much easier than they used to. And you used to have to receive a pretty significant beating to get a 10-8 round. Now they hand that out much easier. They did that because there's less rounds in MMA. So if you think about it, it's only a 3-point swing in a 3-round fight. If you're only handing out 10-9, the fight can swing very easily either way. And they were doing that to allow for somebody who completely dominates one round to get a bigger bonus or a bigger boost on the scorecards than a guy who just ekes out the next round and wins it by a hair. They want that first round and that domination to be more and to not be equal to somebody who just eked out a round and won it. And it was a good tweak. It makes sense. That being said, there's arguments to be made that the entire scoring system itself should be changed and things should be done different. I don't know. I've heard good arguments made both ways. All I know for sure, one thing, no matter what you have as far as the actual criteria to the system, no matter how things are done, the way the rules are laid out and on paper, all of it means nothing if you don't actually have better judges. You need more qualified people watching these fights, putting their scores on the cards. The way it's going now is not good. It's a black eye for the sport. People do not like seeing the wrong man getting his hand raised at the end of a fight. Do you think there's a different way that they should do it altogether? Do you think they should try to tweak the system? Do you think this one was just applied improperly? Do we need a completely new training system for the judges altogether where the majority of them are recruited who used to compete or train at a high level? Should there be some kind of qualification besides just what the athletic commission gives you? I don't know. It's a tough one.